When somebody dies in Egypt, his body is taken to the mosque for his family and friends to pray and say their final goodbyes. The Imam came to the soaping group and with a compassionate voice asked, "What was the name of the young man?" A lady with a broken voice responded, "Mustafa." I knew this guy for 7 years of my life, but I knew him with a different name. I didn't know who his family were. I didn't know what he did for a living. I didn't know even where he lived. 7 years, and you would have thought his real name will slip from behind the mask. But no, just like the rest of us, he was very cautious. I mean, we all knew that everyone used fake names. We all accepted the fact that to stay friends, we don't ask questions. Because in Egypt, you don't reveal your real identity to people who know that you're gay. Being gay in Egypt is like living a big, big lie. You wake up every morning and you wear a mask, an entire bodysuit in fact, to conceal your sexual identity. You greet your family, your nosy neighbors, your work colleagues with the macho persona they're expecting. And then when you finish work, you wrap yourself in the darkness of the night and go meet your gay friends. Now you can let your hair down a little bit, but only a little, because there are laws out there that criminalize your very existence.
Most Arabic countries criminalize same-sex relations, some quite severely, including the death penalty in countries like Saudi Arabia and Sudan. For an LGBT person in those countries, there is the constant fear of exposure, which could lead to honor killing by families who would regard it as a great shame to have a gay member, or through mob violence in the street, or to arrest and imprisonment, and even in extreme cases, execution.
I have never had legal issues being gay in Lebanon. That's partly because I was never out in Lebanon. And I also think because maybe physically I don't, I'm not on a spectrum where I look like a feminine female, so I never had any troubles with that. I was never harassed for my looks, unlike many other Lebanese people who suffer from quite legal repercussions.
Having said that, homosexuality was not always criminalized in the Arabic world.
If we look back at the history of this, we see that the early travelers from Europe to the Middle East saw the Arabs as really quite licentious and sexual compared with the rather stiff sort of moral values that had arisen in Britain in the Victorian period, for example. And that actually led to a situation where people living in Britain who were gay or going into trouble in various ways will go to Arab countries to take refuge.
There's plentiful evidence that homosexuality has always existed in Arabic culture and society. In some cases it's been celebrated in terms of art and poetry and literature.
In those two miniature paintings from the 18th century artist Abdullah Bukhari, we see a man resting on a red cushion as his lover penetrates him. Not quite clear? Let's have a look at the second one. A man embraces his lover tightly. They're clothed, but there is no modesty to be found here. The lover's erect penis is prominent and clear. And since Islam spread centuries before that, we cannot blame the homophobic attitude in these Arabic countries on Islam.
I think it's an oversimplification to put it all on Islam, again, because, you know, as you just said, there are a large number of Christians in Lebanon and in Egypt, and yet they're by large homophobic countries.
This is not about religion, because, you know, religion doesn't really... I have Christian friends, Muslim friends, they're both having same issues, you know. It's culture. It's culture.
Ah, the Arabic culture.
Arab society is a very patriarchal society. We have a situation where men are expected to be men in a sort of John Wayne kind of very macho style. And so if somebody is not masculine in that sort of stereotypical way, people start asking why. And again, they think they're letting the side down by not being masculine enough.
Masculinity in the Arabic world is very interesting because, in my view, men who are gay, who are masculine, can actually go on living as secretly, closetedly gay for the majority of their lives, as long as in the world they're celebrated for being masculine. The problem is when you've got a cross in the gender that you're assigned to and how you present yourself to the world. God help feminine men. God help masculine women.
Well, sadly, intolerance and discrimination are widely spread in the Arabic world. And not just in areas as sexuality. You can witness this in areas such as gender, religion, and ethnicity in some other countries. The problem really is, in these countries, they don't consider these acts as acts of discrimination. They consider it the individual's duty towards the side that he or she identifies with.
There's also this question of honour, which might be difficult for people outside the Arab countries to understand, but it's pretty much like the attitude of whatever the neighbour's going to say, you know, so that the family's reputation needs to be protected.
Yeah, that's why they kill sometimes people, because they kill he's a gay guy because he's destroying the image of the family name.
Alongside with the lack of education, we have the fact that Arabic people do not talk about sex. They consider it to be impolite to talk about sexual stuff. Kinda cute.
I never knew that I was gay or I was labeled as gay because there was no sexual education. There was no talk of sexuality. There was no, there were no media platforms that talked about it. Even the cable channels that we used to get, movie channels and super movies, the movies were filtered and they were censored.
In Western countries, for example, you find books on sex education, you find books about homosexuality, all sorts of things. If you go to a bookshop in Cairo, you'd be very lucky to find anything at all along those lines. So there is a problem, particularly with parents who don't really have much knowledge about these things or much understanding.
I was born in Kuwait, raised in Kuwait and Jordan, kind of. Then I moved to Dubai. For people there, they think that if you're gay, then this is a disease, like you're sick, or this is a sin, this is something, you know, not normal. This, like, you know, just like they don't believe that you're born this way.
I am a medically trained doctor and I can confirm to you that homosexuality is not a disease and it's not a mental illness.
Although the American Psychiatric Association and the British Psychological Society have stated that homosexuality and bisexuality are not mental illnesses, the Arabic world still stands opposed to that statement.
They follow everything from, you know, from UK, US and Europe, but of course when it comes to this, they're gonna say, no, they're wrong. No, we know better. No, that doesn't exist. This is a disease.
I think the question of gay rights in the Middle East has to be viewed quite broadly, and this is not something that a lot of people in the region necessarily understand. They see it as something very specific to gay people, something that only LGBT people would be interested in. But it does stretch much wider than that, because it relates to other issues about people's freedom to make their own personal choices, you know, decisions about what happens to their body, all those kinds of things.
In many, but not all, Arab societies today, homosexuality seems to have become very heavily politicized. It's become a political weapon. It's being used to demonize the enemy within. So LGBT plus people are a small, vulnerable target, and it's very easy for corrupt and failing regimes to choose particular communities to demonize and vilify and to blame them as the problem. And it's a very good distraction technique. You know, it's an age-old tactic. You know, the Nazis used it against the Jews. You know, blame this minority for the problems. Use this minority to stir up public anxiety and fear, to distract attention from the corruption and economic disaster that so many governments are visiting on their people.
There is a fiction in the Arabic world that gay people do not exist. Tell us more about this.
Gay people do not exist in the Arabic world. We do. Here we are. Oh, we exist. You just don't see us. And when you do, you don't pay attention to us. And when you do, you don't think that we're gay. We are everywhere.